So I often get asked questions about what book should I buy if I'm interested in learning Greek. And since there is a special on right now, I thought this would be a great time just to give a bit of a list of books and how to even get into Logos Bible software to take advantage of this sale that they've got going on right now. So let's get into it. Now, like I mentioned, often people ask me, well, what book should I buy if I'm going to learn Biblical Greek? And a lot of these people are looking to learn on their own, so they're not necessarily joining Master Testament Greek. Some of them are, of course, and if you're joining Master Testament Greek and if you're going to be working on your own, it doesn't matter which way, really. The list of books I'm going to give you in this video and also where I typically recommend people start when it comes to Logos Bible software, this is going to be really a quick guide, if you like, just to sort of get you started. The first thing I want to do is that it's often very helpful to start with a base package. Now, I'll talk about why a little bit more later in this video. But the interesting thing about base packages is that they're a little bit of a mixed bag in some ways. And it used to be that these were reasonably easy to work your way through. So back in 2003, there were 5 base packages. In 2009, there were 9 base packages. And today, I think I counted about 87 base packages. No wonder it's hard to work through and figure out, well, which base package should I get? It's overwhelmingly confusing. And so I wanted to give you this as a guide particularly for people who are looking to learn the languages and learn Greek as well. Now, again, not everything in these packages is going to be useful and not equally useful, and there's going to be a lot of things left out of the base packages, even the ones that I'm going to recommend in a moment. But we can plug those gaps a little bit. Before we get into which base package to start with, let's talk about the pros and cons of base packages. First of all, the biggest issue with base packages is that it's essentially a curated library designed for a certain demographic or group of people, and often with the current lineup of products is designed around denominational lines. So you've got a Reformed group, or you've got a Baptist kind of collection, or you've got a charismatic collection, or whatever it happens to be. There's all sorts of different collections, hence we have 87 of them. And then within each of those 87, you've got, a basic one graduating all the way up to a really advanced one. And you can just, there's this big matrix, and you have to kind of work out where you sit demographically and then which books, what number of books you want and so on. But the problem is, when you do that, is that essentially you're getting a generic library. It's still generic, even though it's denominationally oriented, it's still quite generic. And you've got books that you've probably never heard of that are even in the basic packages that you're probably not likely to use. So you're going to get a lot of books buying packages that you probably don't want and you probably don't need. But on the other side of it, the cost per book is way better if you're buying a package than if you're buying the books individually. So typically, if you buy the books individually, you're going to pay pretty much the most that you can pay per book to get those books. But if you buy a base package, often it brings the price of those books down significantly, which is one of the reasons why base packages are really helpful. The other thing about base packages in terms of pros and cons is that with a base package you get additional tools in addition to the book. So you'll often get data sets and resource sets, like for instance the sermon builder, or this bunch of syntactical guides and lexical guides and so on, pronunciation, things like that come with some of these base packages that you don't get if you just get, say, the free edition of Logos and then you add books to it. And this is another thing that really makes the base packages a little bit more valuable. So there's pros and cons here when it comes to getting the base packages. And just one other con, I guess, with these base packages, that often the books that you get, the extra books particularly, are often older books. Many of the times they're out of date. Sometimes they're not. They haven't been superseded. For a good example is if you're going to get one of the packages I'll mention in a moment, often you'll want to get something like Coney Bear's, grammar of the Septuagint. Now that's a really old grammar, but there's not a lot of other grammars that have been written for the Septuagint since that time. So even though it's really old, it's not really been superseded, although a lot of the grammatical concepts in it have been. And so it's one of those things, the other times you're going to get something like Liddell and Scott, which is a great, lexicon in a lot of ways in terms of as a poor man's lexicon. But at the same time, it's a really old lexicon. There's a lot of lexical work that's been done since. And so it is worth considering one of the more recent ones, such as BDAG and those kinds of things as well. So the thing with the base packages is there's pros and cons, right? You get lots of books, but you get them at a lower price. A lot of the books you get are older and you're probably not going to need them. So it's kind of one of these difficult challenges to weigh up. But let me just sort of give you a quick guide as somebody who's considering or about to go to seminary and learn biblical Greek. Which base package do you start with? If you're interested in Greek, where do you start? Well, you're going to want some base resources. Now, again, the base packages that I'm recommending here are the higher end academic editions, the Academic Premium or Academic Professional. Now with these, if you get, say, the Academic Premium Edition, it's going to give you the Nestle Aland 28th edition with the apparatus. It's going to give you Schwant's grammar, which is a pretty good introductory grammar. It's going to give you the SBL Greek New Testament, which you really want, along with the audio Greek New Testament, so you can hear it pronounced as well. It's going to give you Little and Scott as lexicon. It's also going to give you Lamp's patristic lexicon, which again is very old now, but it's a really well-respected lexicon and well worth having if you're looking at reading the Apostolic Fathers and maybe some of the other Koine period texts as well. You also get the Exegetical Dictionary of the New Testament, which is a 3-volume exegetical lexicon, which is pretty helpful as well. And then, of course, there's, from the Septuagint point of view, you get Ralph's Septuagint, and then you get Lake's Apostolic Fathers. So the Academic Premium base package will give you a pretty decent kind of all-around package that will give you, both New Testament, some grammars, some more advanced stuff, some Apostolic Fathers, and the Septuagint as well. And all of that is really helpful and gives you kind of a good base starting point. Now, the problem with this, of course, is it's going to cost you about $1,000 before discounts. And that's kind of a lot of money. Now, speaking of discounts, these right now, as I'm recording this, there is actually a back to school special on at Logos. So click on the link below and you should find that you'll see, if they're still applicable, you see them automatically applied when you add them to your cart, okay? And normally that's about a 20% discount, sometimes a little bit more depending on the book, and some books are not included in the back to school discount that I'm sort of talking about here. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. But the Academic Premium version is a pretty good all-round starting package if you're interested in Greek, but it does still lack a couple of things. It doesn't include BDAG, for instance, and it doesn't include the Theological Dictionary of the Greek New Testament. So it's not exactly complete, and if you do want to add those to the package that you get, you'll need to upgrade to the professional, Academic Professional Edition, and that's $1,499, $1,500 US before you add any discounts to it. And of course, with the discounts, it comes down to, I think it's about $12.99 or $11.99, I think it is. You get about $300 off, which is a pretty good discount for the moment. So that would be where I would start if you're interested in getting a base package and you've got a little bit of money and you're interested in Greek. That would be where I'd start, the Academic Premium or the Academic Professional. Now, there is another way to do this though, and that is to have more of a sharpshooter approach. And if you're interested in using this kind of a sniper approach, then hit the like button, because that helps other people find out that this video is helpful and helps them to find out that there's some specific books that can be quite helpful as well. Now, my list of recommended specific books to get doesn't really change a whole lot. It does change from now and then, but not a whole lot. And there's a reason for that, mostly because once you find a good book and you're still looking at other books, you find a good one, it's hard to replace it, right? And so that's kind of why I recommend the books that I recommend. Now, if this is you, and maybe you've already got a base package and you just want to sort of make sure you've got the key books added to it, well, there's a couple of things to think about. First of all, if you're about to start seminary and go into college and you're planning to learn Greek there, then you'll want to make sure that you get in touch with your Greek professor to find out, what Greek grammar he recommends and will be using in the class, because that's going to be really important. The other thing I want to encourage you to do is to pair the Greek grammar that your professor recommends with another one. Now, to help you with this, and if you're not going to seminary and you're just looking for a good Greek grammar, I've actually created a guide to all the Greek grammars that I've reviewed for beginning Greek that are available. To find that, go to mntg.me/grammars and you'll be able to find a list of them. They're ordered from my most recommended one all the way down to least recommended. In addition to seeing the recommended grammar, you'll see my video reviewing that grammar, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, namely its strengths and its weaknesses. But I also will talk a little bit about what to pair each of those grammars with, which means then you know what secondary grammar you can add to it. Now, unfortunately, not every grammar on my top 10 grammars is currently on Logos. Specifically, Dr. Merkel and Plummer's Beginning with New Testament Greek is not available on Logos. But if you do go to the grammars list, you'll find a link to purchase it on Amazon and I think in Christian Book as well. And you can purchase a copy there as well. But for each of these ones that I recommend, also get the pairing, the one I recommend to pair it. So at the bottom of the description that I give, I see pair this with and then whatever to pair it with. And that's a rationale, there's a rationale behind that, namely that some grammars are easier or simpler, some are more detailed, and you want to pair a more detailed one or one that's got good explanations with one that doesn't have as good explanations. And so that's the rationale behind that. So pick first of all a grammar that you want to work with and pick one of the accompanying grammars that go with it, okay? So for instance, I really like Rodney Decker's Reading Koine Greek, and you'll find that on Logos, and that's a really good starting grammar, and that one I recommend you pair it with either Croy or Mounce. I think from memory is what I recommend, and if you want to get from either of those are available on Logos, and you can go ahead and add those to your cart, and for the most part you'll get discounts on those right now as well because they're part of this current back to school promo. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do, particularly if you're going through seminary or college, is you're going to want to get a copy of BDAG. Now, if you're not going through seminary or college, you can get away with Little and Scott or Abbott Smith. Okay, either of those are good choices. But if you can afford BDAG, I recommend it. It's only, I think it's $90 roughly at the moment, which is still kind of expensive for a book, but it's a well worthwhile and by far the most referred to and recommended lexicon that's out there. It's going to give you really good options for looking up words, and you can make it so that in Logos Bible software, if you're looking at a Greek New Testament, you can often find that you can just that is one of your prioritized resources, and then what you'll find is when you double click on a word in your Greek New Testament, that obviously is going to come up in BDAG. Speaking of Greek New Testaments, the two that you're going to probably want, if you can only pick one, then I would recommend the Nestle Aland 28th edition, or perhaps if your professor recommends it, the UBS 5th edition. The text in both of those is the same. The apparatus is the only real difference. And you want to get the apparatus if you get the Nestle Aland, and the UBS, the apparatus can be helpful, but it just depends on what your professor thinks if you're going through seminary. If you're not going through seminary, get the Nestle Aland. It's got a more comprehensive apparatus, which I think will be helpful. If you're looking to read the New Testament, then I do tend to recommend the Tyndale House Greek New Testament, which is my favorite Greek New Testament. So that's sorted out with a grammar, with a lexicon, and with the Greek New Testament. The next thing you're going to want to do is to get some of the more intermediate Greek texts so that you can go a little bit further. And this is really for once you've finished beginning Greek. Once you've finished beginning Greek, then you want to carry on with, developing your knowledge of the language more fully. And to do that, I recommend Mathewson and Emmig's Intermediate Greek Grammar. This is available in Logos, and it's by far, in my opinion at least, the most readable Greek grammar, more advanced Greek grammar, intermediate Greek grammar that's available on the market today. Now, you can also go with going deeper with New Testament Greek, which is not currently available on Logos. It's coming, but it's not currently available. Or I do recommend also Wallace's Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics. And again, if you're going to go with Mathewson and Emmig for a readable intermediate Greek, then I would go with Wallace for a more of a reference intermediate Greek or advanced Greek grammar. It's kind of more of an intermediate grammar in many ways. Some people ask me, is there an advanced grammar if Wallace is a intermediate grammar? And it's hard to answer that. I think the closest thing to an advanced grammar we have really is still probably Robertson. Again, it's a tome, 1,300 pages, I think it is. So it's really long, very complex, very detailed. And Wallace is really good, but it doesn't come quite to that same level of detail. So that would be my recommendation. In fact, if you get just putting aside the Greek New Testaments, if you're going to get a Greek grammar, say Reading Koine Greek by Rodney Decker, Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek, the 4th edition, maybe BDAG, and then Mathewson and Emmig and Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics, it's going to set you back around about $224. So that's not too bad if you're just looking for a basic library to round you out. Now, you don't get all of those resources in the academic bundles, which is unfortunate. But again, it's a little bit cheaper and you can get just what you want this way as well. Now, the other thing you'll want just to round out your library as you get underway here is you're going to want to get a copy of the Apostolic Fathers. And I recommend Michael Holmes's Apostolic Fathers. You want the Greek and the English text as well. That way you've got the English translation. Now, his translations are quite, I mentioned this in the last video talking about the Greek, the Apostolic Fathers or the Church Fathers, but his translation is quite dynamic, which is great, but it's very different to what you read in the Greek. But it's handy to have both of those, and it's about $51 for the both together. And the other thing you want is the Logos Septuagint. Now there's lots of other Septuagint editions on Logos, but I tend to just use the Logos Septuagint, which has got the morphology built in, and it's nice and easy. You can also add to that if you wanted to the alternative texts, but if you don't get the alternative text, it's about $99, but it's well worth having that if you're going to get into the Septuagint at all as well. Now, if you put all of that together, it's going to cost you about $400 for that whole sort of library without a base package. Now, what I recommend you do here is if that's what you want to do, you can actually, Logos has a payment system and you can just choose however many months you want to pay it off of, and it will just work out how many payments, what the price will be per payment. There's a little bit of a fee involved in that, but it's not too much, and that makes it much more achievable to get that basic library that you're after. Now, if you're sitting here and you're going, well, I see the benefits of a base package and I see the price difference with just getting the ones that I want, is there a way to get the best of both worlds here? Because like I mentioned, there are some features in the base packages that you don't get as part of, if you just go and buy individual books with a free or low-end version of Logos. You don't get some of those Greek lemma, data sets, pronunciation, syntax tools, diagramming tools, and some of those kinds of things, which can be really helpful. So if you do want to get a base package, then what you want to do is look at the features that are involved in each of those base packages and basically just choose the one that's got the features that you really want. That means that for some of the times you might find that it's actually the best thing to do is get the cheapest academic bundle and then go and add the key books to it that you're after. And that would give you a cheaper price overall than buying the academic premium edition, but make sure you get all the books that you want. The tools that you need will be hopefully in that academic edition that you get, and then you'll get all the benefits of the actual books that you need that we've just talked about. And again, hopefully between those two, it will be less than getting the academic premium set overall. And that would give you then a really good sort of rounded set of books that will get you started and get you into Greek and take you not just through beginning Greek, but well beyond that as well. In fact, with this sort of set, with the library I've just described here, you should be able to get pretty much all the way through a master's degree in terms of Greek exegesis, using Greek grammars and so on, using the books that I've recommended here. Now, you'll find that some professors will have certain classes with certain other books that you'll need to get, and that's fine, but for the most part, you shouldn't need to expand your set much beyond what I've said here. So I'm interested in hearing what you're doing. Are you going to take advantage of this Logos back to school sale? And if so, what are you getting? Leave a comment in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing from you there. And if you're interested in learning more about how to actually learn Greek and get all the way to the end, can I encourage you to download my brand new, recently updated Roadmap to Mastery at masterntgreek.com/roadmap. You can download that totally free of charge. I've just had it updated and I'd love for you to get your hand on a copy as well. So with that, masterntgreek.com/roadmap. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, thanks so much for watching and keep taking small, consistent steps toward mastery. I'll see you in the next video.